Hi guys, and welcome to a new Dawn. I am Dawn, and this is going to be part 3 to moving in the monster. You guys have been here before. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're new here, thanks for joining. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. By now, you guys know where I'm going with this. So let's just jump in where we left off. So part 3, I talked about at the end of part 2, like deciding to move with him to Houston, and I left off at us going to look for an apartment. I didn't mention this before, and I never told him, but I kind of knew that it was going that way before it went that way, right? And I'm a planner. So prior to us going to Houston to look at apartments together, I actually went down there myself once before. So one weekend he went home to visit his family. For some reason, I feel like he wanted to go by himself. That was not normal, but it wasn't unusual for him to want to go home by himself. And I didn't care. I didn't think anything of it. In hindsight, you know what? It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I'm pretty sure he wanted to go by himself. Like, I remember at the time thinking, go by yourself. Get out of my hair for the weekend. Let me have some time and some peace to myself. Things weren't really terrible at that point, but I will tell you guys, I like my independence. I am very, very much so an introvert, which may be hard to believe since I'm putting my life on film, but I'm an introvert. I really enjoy my time to myself. I can totally be in the house by myself and read a book or catch up on my TV shows or wrap up in a blanket and do nothing. I mean, now it's TikTok. Back then, I'm pretty sure it wasn't TikTok. It probably was just only Facebook, but I mean, I could keep myself entertained and I enjoy that, right? But I'm an introverted extrovert, if that is even a thing, because there are times that I really can be outgoing. It takes me a long time to warm up to people, but once I know you and I'm cool with you and I feel safe with you, I can be more myself, right? And I can be a little more spontaneous at times. When I met him, from the day that we met, we were together all the time. And I'm not even joking. We were together all the time. And we lived together. We moved in together so quickly. We were together all the time. We both were transplants. So I wouldn't say that I had a lot of friends when I was in Dallas. I had friends. So if y'all are listening, don't misconstrue that. I had friends. A lot of my friends I knew from work though. And some of them I was their boss, like I was their supervisor. So, it was important to me to kind of keep business and personal separate. So where I had friends that I hung out with at work, we didn't really do anything outside of work, if that makes sense. I don't know if he had friends while he was there, and I probably didn't care. We were just together all the time. We didn't have a friend group that we were hanging out with. We didn't have couples. Like, we didn't have friends that were couples that we hung out with. I didn't see my friends often. When I moved to Houston, I made some fantastic friends that I would get together with on a regular basis. But even when we moved to Houston, we moved down there together, so we didn't know anybody there. So from the day we got together until we were not together anymore, we were legit together all the time. So when he would have these moments, like these time frames that he wanted to go home for the weekend by himself, peace out, have fun, I'll see you when you get back. This particular weekend, because I knew I was interviewing for the job in Houston, I had been to Houston for work so many times, but only for work. So it was important to me. I just kind of took advantage of the time. I went down there before. I kind of mapped out a plan to see what was what. And then when him and I went, even though it was my second time going, I already mapped out where to go because I had been down there before. So that's just like a little sidebar. Really not important, but I just wanted to share that. So when we went to go look at these apartments, we basically started up north on I-45 and made our way down through the city. And we stopped at about 6 places. And I told y'all, he started an argument with me the night before. And I remember going to sleep thinking, leave his ass. Like, just leave his ass here. And I thought that because, again, I had already been down there looking at apartments on my own. Something was probably telling me I couldn't do this by myself, but something was still leading me to stay and try this thing with this guy. I don't remember us really talking to each other the whole way down there. It's a 4-hour drive from Dallas to Houston. I don't remember us having a conversation the whole way down. We may have talked, but I just don't remember that. We saw 6 apartments and we could not agree on any of them until the very last one. So I remember when we probably got to the 3rd one where we actually started like having a conversation with each other about what it is that we like, what we don't like. I know we talked about on the first 2, but it was just like not really in depth. Like, you know, it was kind of just going through the motions. When we got to the 3rd one, I think the 3rd one was like in the city, like actually in city limits, Houston city limits, downtown, and I hated it. I think he hated it too. And we agreed on that one, and I think that's what kind of sparked more conversation. I don't remember what the next one looked like, but I remember when we got to the last one, we both agreed on it. I don't remember the time frame from when we were there. We settled on that apartment. I ended up getting the job. We started making arrangements to move, and then we moved. I don't know how much time passed. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the previous video. In that time frame, his brother was killed, and there was a moment where we almost didn't go. To be honest, I think that happened before I even started interviewing, because I remember us having a conversation about it, and I remember saying, like, I don't have to keep going. You know, like, I don't have to keep going forward. I can look for something else. I always say that things shifted when we moved to Houston, because his brother was killed and then we moved during a hurricane. It was like total chaos. What I realized is that these things that were happening were probably going to happen anyway. Like, I didn't know that until after the fact, but they were probably going to happen anyway. So moving down there, what ends up happening is the week that we were going, we had been trying to figure out how we were going to do this, right? So I needed to go down and sign the lease. Everything was in my name, everything. His name was not on it. He was never on the lease. So I was going to go down, sign the lease, get the keys on like a Wednesday. But that Monday, I had started orientation. So originally, I was going by myself. And I was going to go to orientation, pick up the key on Wednesday. Whatever I could put in my car, I would take down and put in the apartment, scope things out, come back on Thursday. Saturday, we would move in. We had been planning out for weeks. At the very last minute, he decided, no, he wanted to come down there with me. After I got there, like in hindsight, I realized that he wasn't really wanting to do that for planning, as he told me, because what he thought was like, I can set up some interviews for that week while you're there in training, do my interviews, have a job lined up. We would leave. This is a key point. We would leave one of our cars. So we would take both of the cars down there and leave one car there. Drive back and get our things and come back on the U-Haul. So on the U-Haul, we would just be taking one person drive the truck, one person drive the car. Originally, we were going to attach one of the cars, one person drive the second car, one person drive the truck and tow the car. So that changed because he wanted to go down to Houston with me. I always wonder, like, why are you changing the plan that we've talked about for weeks? Why are you changing the plan at the very last minute? And what I realized after the fact was that he didn't trust me. Now, it's just a little sidebar because this is what I've learned to believe. This is my own personal opinion, my own personal belief about people. People who constantly accuse you of doing things that you actually are not doing and you're not even thinking about doing, is probably because they're up to something themselves. And I stand on that. Okay. So we changed the plans. The change in plans is key because what actually ended up happening is that the week we went down there, we went together. I was in training. He was supposed to be interviewing, checking out the lay of the land, right? And Wednesday, I picked up the key. Well, by the time Wednesday came, we had been watching the news, and the news was saying that there's this terrible tropical storm brewing called Harvey, and it was supposed to hit by the end of the week. And so we were talking about it, and we were asking people about it, and we were trying to figure out, like, is this something that we should be concerned about? You know, we took 2 cars down there, so we were thinking of leaving one of the cars there. The whole time everybody's like, we get these tropical storms all the time, it's nothing, you know, it's okay. I'm asking the apartment, like, I was planning to leave one of my cars down here. Would it be safe for me to do that? It's a gated community, but I was also thinking it's supposed to storm. Before we left, that tropical storm had turned into a hurricane, and they said it was going to be a hurricane. In my mind, and what I had expressed was, we need to take both cars back, right? Because there's a storm coming and we don't know what's going to happen. I remember from work and traveling to Houston that it floods there. I had no idea how bad it floods there until I actually moved there, but I did know, like, Houston floods, right? So he was insistent about leaving that car down there. And I want y'all to remember that. I knew that was the stupidest shit I ever heard. Like, that was a dumb idea. We don't know anything about where we're at. And there's a storm coming and we're not coming back for 2 days. It was a dumb idea, but you can't tell a grown man anything. This is another thing that I come to realize throughout our relationship. I think in hindsight, right? In hindsight, because I didn't see this for what it was at the time I was going through it. I totally feel like he wanted to control me and put me in my place. So it was like, I can't be the decision maker, right? Like, he is a man and he needs to lead us in everything. Not have a discussion about things and come to an agreement with something, but do it his way. That's what I really feel like. So when it came to us leaving that car down there, we had an original plan. He didn't like it. He changed it. Things changed when we got to Houston. And instead of us going back to our original plan, we stuck with the plan that he created, which was leave that car down there. And what ended up happening is on that Thursday, after I got out of training, we left. And it was so crowded on that drive home. We didn't realize that people were evacuating because a hurricane was coming, but we knew that it was always a lot of traffic in Houston and Dallas, right? So it was like a lot of traffic. We were leaving at 5 o'clock, didn't think nothing of it. Really, people were evacuating. So it took us a long time to get home. And what ended up happening is that storm dropped on Friday, and that storm system sat on top of Houston for days and days and days and days and days. And it just dumped a bunch of rain. I have to thank the Lord every day that I did not get stuck down there. I was in Houston after, and I experienced the aftermath of Harvey. And where I was supposed to be moving back on Saturday, we didn't actually move back. We didn't actually drive back down to Houston until the following Friday, a week later, because there was so much damage. Storm was everywhere. Businesses were closed. The apartment was closed. There was no way we could get down there. I think I was able to get in touch with the apartment complex by like Wednesday, maybe Thursday morning. And I remember I had hired movers, and I called them like 3 different times to reschedule when to move, and they understood because they knew where I was going. Let me go back. I didn't hire movers. I hired someone to load the U-Haul in Dallas and unload the U-Haul in Houston. So remember, we were planning to move, right? When I tell y'all that he waited until the last minute, we literally had the movers coming, and mind you, we're a week after we were supposed to already be gone. The day that we left to leave to Houston, the movers came and were packing up our U-Haul, and he was still packing boxes because he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to go. From the time that I accepted the position until we got down there, he was back and forth the whole time. And I remember saying several times, like, bro, you don't have to go. You don't have to go with me. Even though he's at the end, his mouth was saying he wants to go. Let's do it. His actions were saying something else. And we went, and it was terrible. It was terrible. Houston was terrible. I mean, it had been impacted by this natural disaster. It was a catastrophe. There was so much water damage. The apartment complex that I moved into was completely flooded. There were 2 levels, so there was this bottom floor and the top floor, and we, just the Lord's blessing, I had moved on the 2nd floor. So the water didn't impact anyone on the 2nd floor, but all of the apartments on the 1st level were flooded, including all the cars. Every car on the lot had water damage. So that car that we left there, water damage. When we got there, everything was dried up. But you could tell when he opened up the car door, there was mold on the back seats. You could tell the water had gotten up to the center console. So it was bad. It was bad. Everyone who lived on the bottom floor was forced to move out. No matter what level of water damage they had, they were forced to move out. I'm not sure where they went because I didn't know anybody there. They gutted the bottom level of the apartments, and they remodeled. They redid everything, and then they brought new people in. The first year I was in Houston was terrible. It was a nightmare. There was so much drama around the time that we got there. All the changes that we went through, just deciding to move, like to relocate together, and then finally relocating together, and then relocating together during a natural disaster, and then the car being flooded, and the job that he had lined up was underwater when we got there, so he had to look for a job, and he had to look for a job with everybody else looking for a job. And at first, of course, I had a lot of sympathy because I knew that everyone in the city was impacted, and everyone in the city was going through something. People were displaced for a very long time. People were living in hotels. People had to live with their family members. People had to move out of the state, out of the city, etc. It was a bad time for everyone, and it was hard to find a job. And I remember seeing on the news at one point that they were offering day jobs to people, volunteer, not volunteers because they would pay you, to help clean up like different parts of the city. And some of these day workers would take these jobs on, and then they weren't getting paid. So it was like a lot going on, right? When he would tell me that he was really struggling to find a job and to find work that would pay him well, I felt sorry for him, and I felt empathy, right? And he made me feel like it's my fault. This is my fault. These things are happening to him, and it's my fault because I'm the one who moved us down here. All the while, the job that I moved down to, I started out doing great there, and I ended up doing great there. I mean, it was a success story for me all the way around. We lost a vehicle, but I felt like the blessing was the job that I had required me to travel throughout the city, and they rented me a car. So week after week after week after week, I was able to rent a vehicle, and I would drive that vehicle all week, and he would drive my car. So I thought we're fine, like, yes, this terrible thing has happened to us, but we can adjust because we still have 2 vehicles, right? We still can get around. I still have a job. I'm making enough money that I could put food on the table and this and that, and I could cover us. I was covering us, and I was covering us the whole time we were there. We were in Houston for 4 years altogether, and for 4 years he was in and out of work. He probably didn't get a car until the 2nd year that we were there, and I had to help him get that car. I ended up putting the down payment down on that car, and he was supposed to make the car payments. I think he made 2.5 maybe, and not paid for the car the rest of the time because it was also in my name. I forgot to mention that it was also in my name. But I say all that to say that I used Harvey and the events that happened in our transition to moving to Houston as an excuse for the behavior. What I realized in hindsight is that behavior was who that man was. Eventually, again, like I said, he became abusive. It started in Dallas, okay? It started in Dallas with verbal abuse. It was an emotional roller coaster. It got physical in Dallas, but I kind of brushed it off. The first time that I say he put his hands on me was when we were in Houston. I vividly remember that day. Go back and watch my other videos. But it just kept going from there. And I used the excuse of all these terrible things happening to him. And that's the other thing. He would make me feel like all these terrible things are happening to me because you made me move down here with you. I didn't want to come. I should have stayed my ass in Dallas. And we would fight about that all the time. It was always a guilt trip. It was always my fault. When he was struggling, I was really like, you know, it's okay. If this job isn't working out, like, find something else. We can figure it out. But it starts to wear on you after a while, right? And then you start to realize, like, this is a lot of job hopping. Like, get somewhere and get secure. And again, remember, I told y'all, I figured out he was lying to me about so many things that then I started wondering, like, well, these stuff's not working out at these jobs, but is it you or is it them? Because I told y'all he would fight at work. He'd be cussing people out at work. Somehow he just quit because he just quit. So what I realized is that's who he is. And I didn't know it. And because I didn't know it, I think he used that as a way to make me feel guilty about us being there. And I went with it. And I felt a lot of guilt. I felt to blame for a lot of it until I didn't. And when I stopped feeling that way, I felt resentful and I felt angry. And I really felt like, bro, we've been down here for 3 years at this point. You can't keep blaming your situation on I made you move to Houston. Because guess what? You didn't have to come. And you still don't have to stay. So with that being said, I'm going to end this episode right here. Thank y'all for tuning in. Check in for part 4. I'm going to wrap this thing up. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.